2018 with the introduction of yet another very, very important character for the first time into the MCU. In the comics has had many people who've inhabited that costume, used that power base. I want to make it very clear that this Captain Marvel's name is Carol Danvers.
I don't hate white dudes. White dude. It wasn't made for him.
Captain Marvel, everyone's new, all of a sudden favorite superhero, is here. It stars Brie Larson as Carol Danvers, Samuel Jackson as young 90s and not white Nick Fury, and Ben Mendelsohn as too Australian for y'all to handle. The movie takes place in 1995, setting it 17 years before the events of the first Avengers. The story follows Captain Marvel and her ragtag team of Ku Klux Klan members who form the Star Force, a special super awesome group who hunt down Skrulls, because Skrulls are taking over planets and we can't have that. The movie starts off with a mission to rescue a Kree undercover agent on some smog planet where you can't see a bloody thing. Captain Marvel is kidnapped and held in a Skrull spaceship where they are trying to locate in her memories when she got her Super Saiyan powers that will kill Thanos in Avengers Endgame. She escapes and then crash lands on planet Earth in the year 1995. She lands in a blockbuster and then meets everyone's favorite pre-Hasselhoff but post-Hasselhoff Nick Fury.
Not a bad-looking guy, huh? Not a bad-looking guy, huh?
And then so off they go on adventure. She fights a Skrull in a train, and he fights a Skrull in a car. They team up. They set off to find out who this woman is that Captain Marvel keeps seeing as the head of intelligence in her mind or whatever. And then she discovers she had a life on Earth, and she's absolutely fine with it. She's fine with a lot of things, but more on that in a bit. She fights a bunch of Skrulls, Sam Jackson plays with an alien kitty, and Jude Law talks to Ronan the Accuser on Skype a few times. Then it ends with Captain Marvel going full Super Saiyan 3 and showing that she is more than capable, empowered, and empowered to eventually punch Thanos in the face where he will die because he's a big toxic meanie. So that's a very floaty summary of the movie, in my opinion, like IMO. That's a very sloppy rendition of the film's plot. Now, there was a bunch of good stuff in this movie, there was also a lot of problems. But not necessarily problems in the movie, but problems that are rather not in the movie. Now in this review, I will not be giving away any spoilers in terms of the connections to the other Marvel movies or Endgame or Easter eggs, but in order to discuss the details of this movie, I'll have to reveal who the real villains of this movie are, as well as some other things. So keep listening if you want, but there's a lot of stuff to go over. So here's your mild spoiler warning. Here we go. So this movie does what I guess all movies that come out these days have to do. Promote it like it is the biggest movie the planet has ever seen, even if it isn't at all. All the trailers promise some intense mystery of Captain Marvel remembering her past on planet Earth, and massive space battles, and how she becomes Lady Goku. I was aware that they said this is like a road trip movie between Captain Marvel and Nick Fury, and it even gets to the point where these montages of her in the trailer, like falling down and getting back up throughout her life, is the amount of screen time that it is in the actual movie. And with the mystery life on Earth being the drive of this movie, it's a good opportunity to break formula with the rest of the Marvel origin movies, but it still just didn't go for it. And for a majority of this movie, Captain Marvel is just going with the flow on everything. Sometimes she has like this ditzy attitude where she's cheeky and just a bit bloody silly. But for the most part, she's just like got this blank face and yeah, just goes with the flow on everything. We have to go to this planet and kill Skrulls. Okay. You're in this photo taken on Earth years ago. I had a life on Earth. The Skrulls are actually good guys. Okay, I'll trust them. Turns out the Kree are evil and you have Goku powers. Oh, well that's cute. And with a character that never really has to struggle with the events in the story, it's kind of hard to grasp what her character even is. So like they set up the Star Force, right? The space cops that go around killing Skrulls, because we hate people who don't identify to a traditional gender or race. They want to bloody be who they want to be. So I was expecting them all to be like the judges in Judge Dredd, very emotionless. Skrulls are taking over the universe and we have to kill them. But it should have had like this Starship Troopers thing where it should have just been all war propaganda to wipe out this opposing species. It's all over the Kree planet that she's on in the first 15 seconds of this movie.
In Geneva, the Federal Council convenes.
We must meet the threat with our valor, our blood, indeed with our very lives, to ensure that human civilization, not insect, dominates this galaxy now and always.
If Carol Danvers lost her memory 6 years ago, well then you have 6 years to feed into that anti-Skrull mentality, which can mostly be taught by Jude Law's character. But also, like Starship Troopers, you paint the Skrulls out to be like the worst thing since unsliced bread. So her, along with the rest of her team, can just be full-on space Judge Dredd, upholding the space law. After the events of Captain Marvel escaping the Skrull ship, she crash lands on Earth. So now she can just assume there's a bunch of Skrulls in hiding and plotting something on planet Earth. She teams up with Nick Fury and they head to some NASA facility to go through files. They try to find out the plot motivation in some kind of folder. Captain Marvel then sees a photo of the woman in her corporate-approved dreams, discovers that she is in the background of the photo in an Air Force uniform, and then is like, okay, but no like burst of emotions. Why am I in this photo? From that moment, it should have gone full Bourne identity, the Danvers identity. But nah, just tracks down the other woman in the photos, goes to her farm, and she just tells her some stuff, and she's like, oh yeah, let's go to the next scene now. Something I remember reading back in the day was that they wanted to have the Skrulls be the main army in the first Avengers movie, but they couldn't due to not owning the rights at the time. But what do you know, Marvel owns them now. So with this movie being the introduction of the Skrulls, I was under the impression that they would become the big threat throughout Phase 4. Like they're shapeshifters. You know how much great paranoia set pieces you can write now? Captain Marvel versus the Thing. Who do you trust? Is this really me in the picture? Or is it a Skrull imitating me? So I would then try to uncover the mystery of who the other woman is. Then it turns out the Skrulls have been manipulating me this whole time. Plot twists! Make you think one way, turns out the film is going in another. So they play around with that for a bit in like the first third of the movie, and then spoilers! Turns out the leader of the Skrulls and the rest of the Skrulls are just peaceful looking monsters and are just looking for refuge and to not be oppressed and discriminated against. This is revealed really, really early on. So the actual antagonist of the movie is Jude Law sitting on a computer and he's heading to Earth while talking to Ronan the Accuser on a hologram Skype. Then they rock up at the end, Captain Marvel dings them around, then they go home, and then Captain Marvel leads the Skrulls to planet Australia. So that's essentially this movie, with some scenes of sitting at a dinner table talking about what to do, which I'm not against. Scenes like that are great moments to slow the action down and develop the characters a bit, like in Terminator 2. After all the crazy non-stop roller coaster of the first half, they then bugger off to Mexico for a little bit, and then things calm down. Get to learn a lot about John and Sarah Connor after the events of the first movie. Logan has a great moment like this. Get a chance to see your characters not in fight or flight mode. But in this movie, there just isn't a whole lot surrounding the quiet scenes. So it leaves it a bit lacking. And don't get me wrong, a smaller scale movie like this would have been just fine if her character was more compelling. So that's why it should either be she's a soulless warrior from the get-go, and discovering that she has a life on Earth brings back her humanity, and ends up saving the day with all the morals and life lessons that she regained from her Earth life. Which is what they were going for, but there was just no grit to it. There was no shocking reveals, there was no passion from her character to drive the story further. Now for a strong female character like this, it's easy to compare her to like the highest standards, which is Sarah Connor and Ellen Ripley. But those characters don't necessarily share the same character arc. But another character in recent years that you can make a comparison to is Anderson from the 2012 Judge Dredd movie, like going back to that. So you either start Captain Marvel off as a trained weapon, or you started off with her in training, which is what they sort of do in a brief, quick scene of her and Jude Law fighting in a room, which is just to show that she has some sort of superpower and her stunt double can do some sweet taekwondo moves.
You have to let go of the past.
I don't remember my past.
It's causing you doubt, and doubt makes you vulnerable. Control it.
But you still don't get a sense of what these people are, and why the twist of Star Force being the real bad guys. We already know that the Kree are massive dicks, and if you introduce a new villain race, but then have it twist to being, no, it's still the Krees who are dicks, then there's no plot drive. So like Anderson and Dredd, she's dropped into the Judge training program. She has a special ability that could prove useful in combat with her telepathy.
Welcome to the inside of your head. It's kind of empty in here.
She's given the rundown of how strict they must be with the law and how to uphold it. And her first test means that she has to make a hard decision.
What are you waiting for, rookie? His crime is attempted murder of a judge. The sentence is death.
Yes, sir.
So you have Jude Law pushing her into not seeing the Skrulls as people and to make her kill them without feeling anything. when she starts seeing the Skrulls for who they really are, and starts seeing the blurred lines between who is good and who is bad. Anderson uses her telepathy to see she is killing innocent people who are just forced into the fight. The Skrulls are only trying to defend themselves against the Star Force bias, and Captain Marvel realizes that using her power is actually an unfair advantage, then develops a desire to use it for good.
Mind explaining yourself, rookie? Abetting a felon is not just a fail offense, it's a crime.
I already picked up the fail when I lost my primary weapon. I'm not going to be a judge, and I don't need to be a mind reader to know it. He's a victim, not a perp, and until my assessment is formally over, I'm still entitled to dispense justice, and that's what I just did by letting him go. Maybe that'll be the one difference I do make. Let's finish this.
And by the end of the film, she makes the hard decision to better herself and become a real hero. Not just start off as a Skrull-killing dick, have the Skrull leader say, "Oh, now come on, mate, we're bloody good old fair dinkum good blokes. We just want to have a good time, you know?" Not just go, "Okay, I'll just go with the flow." Like, earn it, girl!
She a pass or a fail?
She's a pass.
Empowerment doesn't mean you're fine with everything. You need to go through a world of shit, grow stronger, and come out of it better prepared than you ever thought you would be.
I mean, am I tough? Organized? I can't even balance my checkbook. Look, Reese, I didn't ask for this honor, and I don't want it. Any of it.
You wake up every night, your sheets are soaking with sweat.
I said no, and I mean it. Now, please leave. I am not going back, and I would not be any good to you if I did.
You're a terminated fucker.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Oh wait, those movies were directed by a filthy man. Now I didn't even want to comment on the Brie Larson blank face thing because when everyone was complaining about her not smiling in the trailers, I thought, well that's dumb. We aren't seeing the footage in context, so cool your jets. But then it turns out there isn't context. But then I saw in an interview that she had to like get superhero facial expression training.
You have to learn weird things like how to make like a cool face.
Really?
You know?
Someone
and, like,
teaches you that?
Yeah, they usually are laughing at you while you're trying to find it because it's hard. I mean, at least it was for me. I would just bust up laughing. That scene in particular where it's like my hair is on fire, you know, and it's this like cool like thing.
Yeah.
Allow me to show you my first take. This was my first attempt at it.
And it's like, if you were acting in a more hard-hitting story with a strong vision, you wouldn't need superhero face training. But like this movie is just essentially a catch-up for Avengers Endgame. I'm still holding out hope that the Russo brothers have figured out how to make her work and bounce off of the rest of the characters. They just know how to make these characters work as well as grow and evolve. Especially what the hell even is her power? She blows up Marvel's lightspeed engine jet thing, gives her god powers. So hopefully Endgame just shows off her powers better, can actually get more creative with it. Ah well, let's talk about the real standout performance in this movie.
I'm not gonna fight your war. I'm gonna end it.
The Skrulls are basically these kind of tough, kind of lizard-looking like kind of space pigs. You know what I mean? Like tough, big sort of, you know, big tough Skrulls.
So this movie stars the great Ben Mendelsohn as the leader of the Skrulls. And I couldn't be happier that this Aussie treasure has had such a booming career. Early reviews of this movie would say only two things. Ben Mendelsohn steals the show and...
What the fuck, is that a fucking cat?
And in hearing that, I just assumed people were just giving Ben Mendelsohn praise due to him being good. Like, he was fine in Rogue One, but people said he was amazing in that movie. But no, he is fantastic in this movie. It's great seeing him play such a major role in a Hollywood blockbuster. Especially where he gets so much screen time, he gets to chew the piss out of the scenery. And on top of that comes something amazing. The creative choice to let the Skrull accent be his full-on ripper, true blue, bloody Aussie accent, mate. Now, I can spot a fake Australian accent from a mile away. but whenever I get to hear a real one in an American movie, it's always a treat.
Something About Mary. Oh, I love that movie. She's so funny.
Not too many girls are this beautiful and sexy and funny and yeah, the whole deal.
Yes, but Cameron Diaz, fuck!
And the best thing about Benny using his Australian accent in this film means that he matches his interviews talking about the Skrulls.
See a Skrull transformation, you know, what does that feel like for a Skrull?
It's kind of rough, but also pleasant at the same time. It's kind of like, oh, you know what I mean? It's like weird kind of electric, funky shocks going on. So it's uncomfortable, but it's also kind of like, oh, that's good. But changing back, very refreshing, you know? Yeah,
sort of like an all-body massage. You just
yeah, a big, long drink of water, something like that. Like, oh, there it is. I'm back scrolling, you know?
And when the reveal happens with the Skrulls being good guys, Mendelsohn does an awesome job of really showing just how human these characters can be. And he is such a humble guy in real life, and along with letting him use his native accent, he just brings that through his character. And when you find out what his character motivation is, it's actually quite heartbreaking. And so, if you're a Ben Mendelsohn fan, I highly recommend checking out the Australian film Animal Kingdom. This was my introduction to him, and this was the little Aussie movie that could. Not only did it launch his career into Hollywood, it did the same for Joel Edgerton and Jackie Weaver. It follows the family of professional organised criminals getting hunted down by the cops in 1980s Melbourne, Australia, and he gives an incredible performance in that movie. He plays the older brother called Pope. He is absolutely chilling in this movie, and no villain he has played since comes close to it.
You know, if Baz was still here right now, and we'd just been to your funeral, we wouldn't be having this conversation, because he'd have already done something about it. If you don't want to do anything because you're scared, is it because you're scared? It's all right if you are. I just want you to tell me about it. Just talk to me.
And if you check it out and want to see more from the director of that movie, David Michaud, his follow-up movie, The Rover, is an absolute masterclass of cinema. Also, Guy Pearce stars in both of them. But anyway, that's enough about Australia. Sorry, I'm Aussie-splaining.
That is good, yeah, it's everything.
You decided to at Sundays.
Oh, you want to do that? Should
No,
we
we
cover
did
it?
it all.
Oh, you've done it all with the others, right?
What were you going to say? What did you kick me for? And what were you going to
Because
say?
you're just so much fucking fun, mate, to be interviewed by. That's why
thank you.
I
You
really,
still
anytime.
That's going on the reel.
There you go. Anytime. No, I always,
you.
Yeah.
So for the longest time, I have been predicting that 80s nostalgia will come to an end and then the 90s nostalgia boom will begin. And so, it's finally here! Oh my god, Blockbuster! Them 90s feels! But I'm going to say what I said before. Most of what you see in the trailer is as much as you see in the movie. The biggest 90s thing in this movie is when she lands in the Blockbuster. The rest of the references involve wearing a 9 Inch Nails shirt and internet dial-up. And then there's just the occasional Easter egg that pops up. There are a few 90s songs in it, but a song is a song, and it takes no effort to homage or recreate a certain era by just putting a song of the time in there. The real recreation of a specific point in time is how you recreate the setting and locations, as well as recreating filmmaking techniques of the time. Great 80s retro movies are like Black Dynamite or Turbo Kid. Those movies perfectly capture the time they are set in, as well as feel like they could easily have come out at that time. But yeah, for the most part, this movie just feels like it could have been made at any time. It has the occasional reference, but that's really where it stops. And I've seen interviews that a big reference for this movie is Terminator 2. Now, I kept that in mind going into this movie, and at the most, the chase scene on the train with Nick Fury following behind in his car on the streets can be compared to the drain chase in Terminator 2, sort of. Like, it was a fun scene, it had good momentum like the drain chase scene, but something that now sticks out to me is something I can't get out of my head. There's a scene in this movie where Captain Marvel is standing outside of a bunch of shops looking at a map. Then this douchebag rocks up on a motorcycle and he says something like, "Hey babe, want to have sex without me putting in any effort to be charming or worth it?" or something. She shrugs him off, he goes in the store, then she looks at his bike, and then it jump cuts to her speeding off on the bike and wearing clothes that she stole from a mannequin, specifically a leather jacket. Now, a complete missed opportunity here. You're using Terminator 2 as inspiration? Why didn't she get on the bike? The guy runs out and is like, "Hey, get off my bike, you crazy bimbo!" Then she looks at him, shoots him with an energy blast, and when he's on the ground, she looks at his leather jacket, and then... You You're making an action movie set in the 90s? How do you not put in Bad to the Bone? All the great 90s movies had Bad to the Bone. Terminator 2, Major Pain, Problem Child, The Parent Trap. Oh well. So I guess you can't make a review of Captain Marvel without addressing the controversies surrounding its marketing campaign. Now I've brought this up in my Wonder Woman and Black Panther review. I am just so over political agendas infecting a movie's marketing campaign. The pre-praise of a movie just because it's a female superhero, just because it's a black superhero. Acting like it's the first of its kind. Ignoring movies from the past that have been diverse and done it better. And just how if you don't like this movie, you are every single virtue signal under the sun. Now this is the real reason I saw Captain Marvel. It wasn't just because I wanted to go in and hate it. It wasn't to praise it for having a female lead. It wasn't for any agenda. I saw this movie because at the end of Infinity War, after the truly shocking climax of half the heroes being wiped out, Nick Fury takes out a device, types some things into it, then he evaporates and drops the device. The camera tracks into it, and then boom! The Captain Marvel logo pops up on its screen, then cuts to black. And I thought that was so fucking cool that after something that shocking, you can just tease the introduction of a new superhero we haven't seen before without saying a single word. There's no, oh no, the world has ended. I know someone I can call who can deal with this exact problem. And we go way back. Just show the logo, a little exciting music beat, done. So I was absolutely on board for Captain Marvel regardless. And I thought to myself, Marvel don't have to say a single fucking thing about Captain Marvel. Just a few trailers. Everyone is going to see this movie and it's going to make a shit zillion dollars. It is such an important setup to the conclusion of this 10-year build-up. Absolutely unstoppable. So let's just trash white men. And if the movie has a negative reaction and gets bad reviews, then we can just blame them for that and prove ourselves right from a problem we started for no reason. And this is what's wrong with politics driving a marketing campaign. We are living in a world where you can make a superhero movie with a female lead and people will go see it. But when you have the marketing campaign proclaim women first, empowering, important, the internet is a place where every single opinion ever made can thrive, whether you agree or disagree. It is free speech manifest. And this is the issue. The world is ready for diversity. No one is going, a female superhero? That's the worst idea ever. A black superhero? That doesn't even make any sense. No one is thinking that. If these characters are successful in the comic books, then those fans will go see the movie, and non-fans will be willing to watch a movie to see why they're so popular in the comic books. But when this SJW backpatting culture shoves it in your face, proclaiming that it is important and it will change the world as we know it, then there's going to be some pullback. It's like telling people what to think and like, and then demonizing them if they don't like your product. And the second there is pullback, then it's, oh, sexist, racist, everything phobic. Trolls are trying to sabotage the movie. Imagine in 2004 when the Catwoman movie came out, and all the marketing campaign was like, female empowerment, yes, first. Although there was a Supergirl movie. And then the movie comes out and it was and is a giant piece of shit. And then everyone just goes, toxic white males on the internet sabotaged Catwoman. How is that any different to now? Like, there has been so much diversity in these types of movies, TV shows, and comic books for decades. But if it isn't recent, it doesn't count. People like to say that the original Power Rangers was racist because the Asian character was the Yellow Ranger and the black character was the Black Ranger. But they completely missed the point. The fact that there was an Asian and Black Ranger. Even the original Japanese Super Sentai that the show was Americanized from was all Japanese people with one woman on the team. But it doesn't matter that they made it more diverse. It's racist because it's not recent. But like the X-Men movies have always been diverse. Aside from the stupid Howard the Duck movie, Blade was the first live-action Marvel movie. But don't matter. When I see these movies getting overhyped, all I can think of is this.
What have you done for me lately?
Like Sarah Connor, Ellen Ripley, The Bride, Xena.
What have you done for me lately?
And even this recent Alita Battle Angel movie. Oh, directed by a man. Marketing campaign doesn't mention female empowerment once. So then the movie gets yelled at for portraying a female lead with the male gaze. And it's crazy how similar that movie is to Captain Marvel. But if it doesn't tick all the boxes with the popular SJW agenda, then it's blamed for being sexist. It's like a cult. It's like a cult with rules. I just wish the day that ethnicity, gender, sexual preference isn't the selling point of the marketing, and no one blames each other for proclaiming it was the best or worst thing for its subject matter. The movie should just speak for itself. Like I said before, politics had nothing to do with the reason I wanted to see this movie. Same as why I saw Wonder Woman and Black Panther. But even those movies had to be tainted by this hyperbolic progressive hype and marketing, followed by the retaliation of half the internet being treated like monsters for not wanting to be labeled as sexist or racist just because they aren't blindly praising the film. But hopefully these times will actually change. A female-led superhero movie can come out, and what's discussed is the story itself, the filmmaking, the vision. It shouldn't matter what it's the first of. Cinema has been around for a long time. There has been many a first of things. But what we should be praising these days is how these things got it right and did it better than what you have seen come before it. Come to think of it. You know what the best part of Captain Marvel was? The scene at the end, where she's in the kitchen washing dishes where she fucking belongs.
Toxic masculinity! Drinking beer! Hard men! Muscle speed! Awesome men! White skin! Good men! Wage gap! Hard men! Domestic violence! Bad men! Getting pussy! Hate men! Man on man! Gay man! Who's the best? Man best! Man's male! Whoa! Toxic masculinity!
Electric funky shocks. Electric funky shocks. Electric shocks, funky, electric funky shocks. I'm back scrolling, you know.